There was some big news in the NBA last night. Everyone's talking about it, and I'm sure everyone that's watching right now already has heard or have seen someone else talk about it. But we're gonna hit this topic. Trevon, the Dallas Mavericks have traded Luka Doncic to the Los Angeles Lakers for Anthony Davis, and there's a bunch of other trade details. The Jazz have also gotten in that trade. They've gotten picks and Jalen Hood, Shafino, and then there's some other players that got moved. Max Christie is also going along with AD to the Dallas Mavericks, and Maxi Kleber is going to the Los Angeles Lakers along with Morris, one of the Morris twins. And I don't know if I missed any trade details, but that's pretty much the gist of the trade. Most people are focusing on Luka Doncic and Anthony Davis, and you even said someone on Twitter mentioned, of course, Danny Ainge would be included in this trade.
Involved in this.
But yeah, but I just want to get your thoughts on this. There's a lot of things we can talk about, but let's just hit the Lakers perspective and the Mavericks perspective. So let's start with the Lakers. Trevon, what are your thoughts on the Lakers and what's the future plan moving on with Luka and even now?
Yeah, I think this is probably one of the craziest trades. You don't want to be too prisoner of the moment, but I think like Kareem Abdul-Jabbar got traded kind of in his prime and stuff, which is way far back. But this is one of the most shocking news I've ever seen. Even if you include KD to the Warriors, LeBron to Miami, I think this is like, it just doesn't make sense when you first hear it. But I think it's obvious that it's more about the Mavs than it is the Lakers in this. But from the Lakers perspective, I mean, it seems like from reports and stuff, they're not the ones that saw out the trade. They were kind of approached by this from the Mavericks. And if you just take in the simples, like the obvious here, AD's 31, he would have been the next guy to take the torch from LeBron. And you're basically being approached with an offer instead of having AD be your guy once LeBron leaves, which is a year, two, maybe, we don't know. Or would you rather have Luka to be your guy? And I think just player for player, which is what this trade is really about, I think you do accept that trade whenever you're offered that, because especially if you look at what you gave up, they didn't give up that much of what you would expect a player like Luka to be traded for in his prime. And I think like that's one of the biggest wins for the Lakers. Obviously, it messes up the rhythm of the season for this year that they had going on now. They just had a wire-to-wire dominant win against the New York Knicks. It was close for a lot of the games, but the Lakers, you really got the sense that they controlled that game, and they did it with defense without Anthony Davis. And another big piece to this as well is losing Max Christie, who has just developed over these past two seasons, really got the opportunity to get playing time this season, and he lived up to it. Last night, I believe he scored about 15 points. He played an amazing defense on Jalen Brunson. Like, they really had him in a chokehold. He was the primary defender, containing the basketball. Then you had guys digging in, because we know Jalen Brunson likes to operate kind of with his back to the basket sometimes in the mid-range. And it just made it easier on everybody else. And, for Karl-Anthony Towns, AD wasn't there, but AD could play him straight up a lot of times. And then you throw a double. So, the defense is what I thought they were really going to lean into. And getting, Jared Vanderbilt back, Dorian Finney-Smith being there. Once you brought Anthony Davis back, and you're just like, man, they don't need a superstar. They just need like a C-level or B-level shot creator who can do their own stuff, or get another backup big to support AD that could possibly play with AD. And they got offered the complete opposite. Like, Luka covers them for the next decade, in my opinion. And I think when you're being offered a player like that, you love AD. For me, being more of a LeBron guy than a Lakers guy, it sucks because you kind of just mess up what you had this year, and it's going on to the future. But I think the Lakers you take that. You take that. There's no guarantee whoever is the next franchise player is even close to what Luka is. So, I mean, obviously, it's a no brainer for the Lakers, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's a blockbuster trade, man, and I don't think that there's any other way to describe it. Um, and like you mentioned, the Lakers, they're looking into the future. This is a future move that sets you up after LeBron leaves your team. And there's always been questions about that, especially as LeBron has gotten to the latter part of his career. Everyone kind of thinks he has maybe 1 or 2 more years left. I mean, you never know with him. He's one of the most disciplined players to ever play in the NBA. He's always going to take care of his body. You know that he's going to be ready to take on the rigorous games and long stints in the NBA. So you know that his career is about to come to an end. So you're trying to see, okay, what's the next move? And a lot of people speculated Anthony Davis would be that, and that's probably was the next step. But once you get offered Luka Doncic for the next 10 years, you just mentioned he's what, 25, about to be 26, I believe. And Anthony Davis is 31, about to be 32. That is a what, 5 to 6 year difference right there. So you
Yeah.
pretty much reset your clock. You set up yourself to have a long future for the next half decade on the conservative side to a decade. Like that is the move that you make for the future. That is how you set yourself up for the future with Luka Doncic, who's already been first team All NBA before, has been to a plethora of All Stars, is consistently in the MVP conversation, has taken the Dallas Mavericks to the Western Conference finals 1 year, and then to the finals just recently last year. So it's really a future move for the Los Angeles Lakers. I loved AD and LeBron together. I felt like that
I'm
was
gonna
a
miss
great
AD.
duo in the league. And yeah, I'm gonna miss it too. But you just can't really fault the Lakers for taking this deal because it just sets themselves up for the future. And honestly, I think this year it does, like you mentioned, hinder their momentum. And I think that they have a few more moves that they're going to have to make, 1 or 2 more moves that they're going to have to make to salvage this season and make sure that they are going to be competitive this season. But moving forward, I don't think that you can scoff at this move that they made. I think
Yeah.
most people in the NBA, if they were offered this specific deal, your team has AD and a team is offering you Luka Doncic, you're probably at the age that they are. I think
Yeah.
that most people would take that deal. So,
Yeah.
um, it's a crazy move, but if you're the Lakers, I think that you're gonna take that pretty much 10 out of 10 times. Um, and there is some risk based off of what the Mavericks are talking about. Some people, I mean, we're going to get into the Mavericks, but they're basically reporting things that could hinder you making this deal. But I mean, Luca is a top tier player in the league. Most people consider him
Look,
a top 3 player from last season. So
look, if Luca being out of shape gets me to the Western Conference Finals it's kind of a poor man's version of what LeBron did with the Cavs getting to the finals. Like
pretty
that
much.
roster was not that great. And he did have Jalen Brunson, yes, but obviously I think in a fit with Luca, Kyrie proved to be a better fit than Jalen Brunson was. Now Jalen only had 1 season, so we don't really know. But I think Kyrie kind of just naturally fit more with Luka, especially having that experience with LeBron. But if that means I get to a conference finals, I lose to the NBA champions that year, the Golden State Warriors, and then I get to an NBA finals and I lose to the NBA champions that year, like, look, I understand he may not come into shape every season, every year, but he still has a lot to learn. It's just the reasonings they're giving does not really justify it to me.
Yeah, well, let's dive into that. So there's been reports the reason that the Dallas Mavericks were willing to even call the Lakers and offer this deal to them was pretty much they felt Luka was not in shape enough, and they are pretty much betting on him becoming the next Zion Williamson. He just recently had that calf injury, and there's been a lot of reports saying that the Mavericks pretty much felt that the reason he's gotten this injury, along with previous injuries from last season and all that stuff, is because he comes into the season out of shape.
and tries to play
And
to it.
also, there's been reports of Dallas Mavericks brass being frustrated with Luka in different parts, things like that. So pretty much, they feel like he's out of shape, and they're pretty much betting on him not being the player that he has been or what most people project him to be. So, what are your thoughts on the whole Dallas Mavericks perspective? Now you have AD, now you compare him with Kyrie Irving, you have Klay Thompson. Everyone knows that Anthony Davis loves playing the four position alongside a center. So, Lively, he's injured right now, but he's supposed to come back before the playoffs. You have Gafford there that can play that five position. So, what are your thoughts on the Dallas Mavericks perspective of this whole trade?
Well, first, I want to attack it from the angle of Nico Harrison. I listened to some of the press conference that they had, I believe, this morning because they have a game tonight. It was a pregame presser. And it does what he was saying pretty much aligned to with what you were just covering or recapping there. He used words as he didn't call Luka out single handedly, but he used words as culture, the type of culture we want to build. Nico basically said AD and Max Christie coming in, we feel like they add to that. And then a reporter asked him about that. Are you saying Luka was not part of the culture? And his response was, I don't want to talk bad about anybody, but you have some people that fit the culture and some people that add to the culture. So he basically feels like Luka was not a leader, and basically like he wasn't worth the Supermax deal that he was eligible for coming up. So it does kind of make you question, like, you just think automatically the Lakers get that call. You're like, what's wrong with Luka? Like, why
Yeah,
would you call us? The Lakers didn't call them. They called the Lakers and offered him. And then to see what he went for, they must have been really desperate to get rid of him to only receive one first round pick. So, I mean, if it's that bad, then I guess you could say, you want to reset and find a different franchise player. But even if you do find a franchise player, which with how the NBA lottery is set up, it's not like the NFL where if you're the worst record, you automatically get the number one pick. You can suck for years and not get a number one pick. And even if you do get a pick, there's no guarantee that he's anything close to Luka. So, I mean, it's very tough from the GM perspective, but if we're looking strictly at the roster short term, and I know they're saying want to win now and in the future. I don't think you have much of a future, in my opinion, because the same questions you had about Luka, AD's been injury prone as well, and he's older. He does provide defense, but a lot of the things you were saying about Luka not being available and things like that, AD historically has had those same issues. He's been great the past two seasons. I think he's played 91% of the games the past 2 years, but historically he's struggled. He's had those same issues. So I think that what they basically have, in my opinion, is two number twos in Kyrie Irving and Anthony Davis. I feel like we've always wanted AD to basically be the number one. And although I think he was the Lakers' best player this year, I think they're going to miss a lot of things offensively from Luka. Despite Kyrie being a great offensive player, he just doesn't have those physical traits as Luka Luka does to kind of overcome different defensive schemes, switching, the double teams, Kyrie's passing is not on the same level as Luka. I don't think AD is a great passer out of the double. So I think just the type of offense they're going to be able to generate is going to be limited. Like they're basically banking on having such a dominant defense that the drop off offensively will not matter. You know what I'm saying? If you look at Kyrie, if he's your main shot creator, he didn't have a great finals against the Boston Celtics. They pretty much took him out a lot. And I know a lot of people want to contribute that to them matching up against Boston and his history there. I just think schematically, it wasn't in his favor. And he wasn't even the main guy to worry about. You know what I'm saying? Like Luka got his, he did what he could do. He was atrocious on defense. We all know that. But just the thought of Kyrie being your number one shot creator, it doesn't really scream championship contender. Like I think they'll have the ability to win a playoff series and things like that. But in the championship win now mode, now the trade deadline is still a week away. I don't see it, for me. They'll be a great competitive team. I like Max Christie. Quentin Grimes has been playing good. Derek Lively is pretty much out for most of the season, so he's not even going to be there. Daniel Gafford. Like, there's a lot of things here that you have questions for. Klay Thompson, a lot of people are banking on him to go back to his old form of when he was with the Warriors, and it just hasn't been that. So I have a lot of questions about what is really the thought process here, because I know they're talking about the win now and the future. But honestly, what do you think? Where would you rank this roster in the Western Conference? You know what I'm saying? You got the Thunder, you got the Nuggets, you got a lot of teams, of course. Like, where would you rank them?
Yeah. I And we were talking about this last night, and it's really confusing for me when I look at it from the Dallas Mavericks perspective. Like, we were honestly confused when we heard the headline, like AD traded for Luka, and we were like, well, what's going on from both sides? But the most sense that I can make of this whole thing is from the Lakers' perspective of we're looking after LeBron. We're trying to set ourselves up after LeBron leaves with Luka Doncic, who has already been considered one like top three players in the league from last season.
Yeah.
Now, when you look at it from the Mavs perspective, I'll tell you right now, I think all right, so you have the Thunder. The Grizzlies and the Rockets are at the top of the West right now. I do think if the Mavericks were to match up with those two teams, I would give them a really good chance to beat one of those two teams. Now, the Thunder, I believe the Thunder would beat the Mavericks. You look at Denver. Denver has struggled this year in spots, but I believe they're in the fourth seed right now. And you go up against one of the best players in the world, or the most considered the best player in the world, Nikola Jokic. Um, you might have to see the Lakers again. I think Dallas right now has a better complete roster than the Lakers, but
Yeah.
who knows moves and things like that before the trade deadline. The Clippers are coming along since they've gotten Kawhi back, so they're still in the mix, most definitely. I think they have one of the most complete rosters right now. The only issue is Kyrie is really your only high level shot creator. Everyone else
Mhm.
is like a play finisher. Like Anthony Davis is amazing. He's going to be great on defense, and he's going to have nights where he just has 40 and 20, right? 40 points, 20 boards. But he is not a guy you just give the ball to and tell me go take me to the promised land. He's a guy
Yeah.
you have to set up, have to have somebody like a Kyrie Irving to pair up with him, which matches up very great. I think that's a really good duo right there. But what happens when Kyrie comes out of the game? Who's your secondary play initiator? A lot of people are talking about Spencer Dinwiddie, who is a good player, but at that elite level,
To lead you in the
it's not
playoffs,
going. I don't think that's going to be beneficial. So that's
exactly.
how I feel about the roster. Now, coming from the whole storyline of it all and what Dallas has put out there, because a lot of people early on into the night after, like right after the trade had happened and into this morning, a lot of people were talking about, yeah, the Mavericks, they knew Luka wouldn't sign with them, sign that Supermax. And that's actually been reported that Luka wanted to stay.
Yeah, then in the press conference, Nico, so they asked them, was there any sense of Luka not wanting to come back or sign? And he said no. He said that wasn't the
Yeah.
case.
So
That
this
came
is
from Nico.
Yeah. So this is pretty much the Mavericks, what they said. We don't think he's in shape. We don't think he's committed to the defensive end. And we don't think he's committed to the 24/7, 365 commitment to being great. They're pretty much betting on this man, Luka Doncic, not becoming a great player and becoming similar to the situations with Zion in New Orleans, and maybe even some might say Kawhi and the Clippers and all that stuff. Which, in my opinion, if you take that bet
You
and
better be
you
right.
you better
You better
not
be
only
right.
that, not only that, Trevon, if you take that bet and you trade him for a 31-year-old who is a great player, but the age difference, along with him not being a play initiator, to pair him with a 32-year-old Kyrie Irving, great player, you even say he's probably not best slotted at number one. You better win now. You
That's
better
what I'm
win within
saying.
the next 2 to 3 years.
Exactly.
Because if you don't, and you trade away a guy that was supposed to be your franchise guy for the next 10 years, 5 to 10 years, or whatever, 5 years being the lowest, like conservative number you can say, you better win now. Or you just made the craziest trade in NBA history, sending away a top tier, what most believe has the potential to be a top 10 player of all time. You just traded
Look,
him away and you have no future set in
j-
place to even replace him. And even if you did replace him, there's no guarantee you're going to get, like you said, a
anything
guy like
close to that.
caliber
It's
Luca.
no game.
My bad. I just wanted to finish that.
No, you're good. You're good. You're good. Like it's not like you're in the running for Cooper flag, and you don't know who's the next prospect to be close to Cooper is going to be. But like just to back up your point, I saw that like I can't remember the full list of guys, but there's only like five current active players right now that have at least five first team All NBAs. Can you guess like a couple of them? Just try to guess a
Yeah,
few.
yeah. So I believe Luca's one, right? Uh, it's LeBron, Giannis. Steph isn't it because he only has four. Um, who else? Dang. Who's the other two? Is LeBron,
I
Giannis,
know it's LeBron, Luca, Giannis,
Giannis, Luca, Giannis,
James Harden.
Jokic.
James
Yeah,
Harden.
James Harden. Yeah,
And I can't remember the fifth one, but the point is like all those guys are like mid 30s to 40. And Luca is 25. Like
yeah,
Steph doesn't have it, KD doesn't have it, Jokic doesn't have it. Like Luka, that's who you're trading away. And I know accolades and stuff doesn't really matter, but this is the guy that's probably the closest thing to LeBron as far as play style, that just specifically within the realm of an offensive generator. Now, obviously not the athleticism, but this is like generational talent that you're giving away for a guy that's older in AD. He does a lot of things great that Luka does not do, but he's had a lot of the same injuries that you're giving as reason as to why you traded this guy away. Like it simply sounds like they're just saying, yeah, he's showing up in the season out of shape, so it will move him. You know, I understand he's up for a supermax contract of I think 5 years, 350 million. But I mean, like the next guy after Luka is probably gonna get five for 375 million. Like that's what happens when you have a franchise player. Like that's how the NBA is now. So like you said, the window is 1 to 2 years. If y'all don't win the NBA championship, you're probably getting shipped out of there. And then also, Nico Harrison confirmed Jason Kidd didn't know. He said it was his decision. Like Jason Kidd had no idea about this.
I
So
think he said the owner laughed at him when he first brought up the idea of trading.
Rob Pelinka laughed at him. Like Rob Pelinka in his statement said, like, "Are you serious? Like, are you for real?" And this, they confirmed also. This has been in discussion since I think the Lakers went to Dallas. You remember they played and Luka and I think Kyrie didn't play and the
Hmm.
Mavericks steamrolled the Lakers. They said it's been going on since then. So it's been in the dark, which is kind of funny because like a lot of leaks get out, but goes
Yeah,
to show you if you don't want a leak to get out, you can keep it out. I mean, so look, man, the issues you had with him about not being in shape, not only did you trade him away, but you traded him away to the one guy that could probably be the best example as far as taking care of your body, a guy that Luka may actually listen to. I think it has a lot to do with immaturity, but seeing it every day, like even Anthony Davis, you just saw over time he was playing through more injuries. He was more available. His mentality got a little bit more tougher. I think it could actually we could see the best version of Luka and at least this next year. I know he'll be super motivated. And when they
yeah,
play Dallas, I'm sure he's going to try to go for 70. Which, I mean, he scored 70 last year. That's definitely in the realm of possibility. But like, if Luka gets that part right because he's with LeBron and learns how to take care of his body, forget top three. Luka could be the best player in the league. You know what I'm saying? If he learns and actually gets with defense, he's been on JJ's podcast multiple
yeah.
times. I'm sure there's a connection there. Like these are people that might could get him to do the things the Mavericks could not. And if Luka goes to another level and he's in the conference and it's the Lakers, like the Mavericks and Lakers kind of have like some things going on there, like where they're not necessarily that fond of each other. I could see this backfiring. Now, although you have Luka in the Lakers perspective, I don't think it's as much pressure because you're really going to have to rebuild around. And I mean, you just got, one of the top three best players in the league. So your timetable for error and margin for error is a lot larger than the Mavericks. You just shrunk your window chance.
Window. Yeah.
But if you don't
They
do it like
basically
in the
traded
next 2 years, yeah,
traded windows.
if you don't do it in the next 2 years, like front office may be out of there. This is the most bizarre thing I've seen. I could get it if this was Zion getting traded, or even like Trae Young. If Trae Young was getting traded, there's a lot of talks about him. Nobody would even scuff at this idea. But Luka has had success, and this is the year after you came from an NBA Finals.
NBA Finals. Yeah.
Like, and he took you to the Western Conference before that. He's doing this out of shape. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't know.
Yeah. And when he's inside the line, he's one of the most competitive players on the court. He can definitely get better. I think we even talked about that's something he can definitely get better at, being in shape, being year round, taking care of your body, making sure that you're preparing yourself, getting better on defense. But he is only 25 years old and has already made first team NBA 5 times. He took the Mavericks to the Western Conference Finals once, and then he took them to the finals again. And like you mentioned, they ran into the eventual NBA champions
Both
both
years.
years. And I would argue that they were clearly a mismatch for everyone in the West last year. They went up against the best defensive team last year in the Minnesota Timberwolves, and they couldn't do anything to stop Luka. And then on top of it, the Celtics are probably one of the best
A lot of
built
people were not
teams
beating
from
us
last season. Yeah, I don't think really anyone is beating the Celtics from last season in a 7-game series. So it just doesn't make sense to me in terms of if you're looking future, but they're trying to win now, and I think they better win now. It's nothing against AD. I think AD is a terrific player. He's like top 5 to 7 players in the league when he's healthy and on the court. Kyrie Irving is a great player, but I just don't think that this is a good move. I don't think it's a good bet on the Mavericks' part, but that's what they did, and I guess we'll see what happens.
Look, if and it's like you said, it's not a knock on AD, but like if you look at the reasons why the Mavericks made it to the finals, it's because Luka and Kyrie, especially Luka, was just such a mismatch for other
Exactly.
teams. and you still had rim protection. You know what I'm saying? Obviously, they're not going to score like that. The wing players are the 3 and D guys are still basically the same. But if you were to switch AD and Luka and put AD on that team last year, I think they swept the Minnesota Timberwolves a large part because they didn't sweep them, did they? They
Uh,
sweep them?
gentlemen's. It was either a gentleman's sweep or a sweep. Yeah, they
Well,
pretty
yeah.
much.
The, I'll say it like this.
Timberwolves weren't beating them.
The way they beat the Minnesota Timberwolves, I think a large part of that was because of that shot he hit against Rudy Gobert to end the game. You know what I'm saying? I think
Just
that
deflated
changed thought.
everything.
Yeah. And they were able to pretty much handle them very, very fairly. But if you put AD instead of Luka, you may not even win that Western Conference Finals. You know what I'm saying? So
Yep.
like I think if they were gonna make this move, they would have needed to somehow turn those 3 and D guys into higher level players. Just
Mm,
because like AD is not the most consistent. Also, Kyrie, just physically is not going to be able to will himself through a lot of defensive schemes, and we saw it last year. Is he going to be able to outperform the Thunder? I think you would need to upgrade him and get him some more help offensively. Now they do have a lot of size, but like I said, Derek Lively is currently out for most of the season. Is he going to be able to play big minutes in the playoffs? So, they're in like all in mode right now. But I think what's most criminal also is you didn't get much in this trade as far as assets, in my
no
opinion.
bidding war.
Yeah, like no bidding war. I think you would have been better off waiting until the season instead of just doing the under the table deal with the Lakers. They could have got so many better packages.
Yeah.
But from them, I guess they were just so locked in on AD they didn't want any other players. But still, you could have got more for Luka.
Mhm.